I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the WDF's Secretary General and referee, Nick Rolls. Thanks for the time, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks, Alex. Yes, it's been a while since we've spoken, and thanks for the opportunity. It'd be great to try and answer some of your questions. Happy to give it a go.
Yeah, it's good to have you on, and lots to get to. And let's start with your role in the WDF. Off the hockey as the Secretary General, a lot of our listeners will know you as being a referee on the stage. So how long have you been involved in the WDF Executive, and how did it come about in the first place?
Okay. April 2020, I joined the WDF. Look, as the same as many people, an opportunity arose for me when my employment situation, let's put it that way, changed during the pandemic. And I knew Richard was already working on, looking to put together a WDF ranking system. And we spoke a lot back then anyway. And he sort of said to me, look, could you come on board and give us a hand? I know you know about darts and appreciate your input. So, April 2020, and the rest, they say, is history, I guess.
Feels a long time ago now, but at the start of 2020, the WDF, they outlined this 2020 vision plans to put on a World Championship event. And in March that year, of course, the world was shut down with the pandemic. So what was that time like working behind the scenes and trying to plan things when there were no events being put on?
In a strange, look, it was obviously not the right way for it to happen, but in a strange way, the pandemic gave us the time to work through the things that, whilst there was no play, which made things a little bit easier, I think. WDF tournament rules, if you looked at the rules that were on the website at that point for the WDF, they were more akin to cup tournaments, because the WDF were running the World Cup and the Europe Cup, but not really WDF player tournaments, if that makes sense. So theoretically, that meant that the whole ranking system needed to be rebuilt from scratch. So, as I say, it sort of gave us the time to literally play our way through a whole season and a calendar year to make the decisions that we thought were the right ones. And it also, most importantly, gave us the chance to speak to all of the member countries, which we did. Myself and Richard, a gentleman by the name of Jacques Newlap, we got together and made phone calls to all of what was around about 65 member countries at that point, invited them onto calls, talked to them about our visions, etc. So, not the greatest of ways to go about it, but, you have to make the most of what's in front of you, I guess, and that worked out quite well for us, if that makes sense.
You mentioned Richard. We had him on our show a few times during that period, and after the first WDF World Championship at Lakeside back in April of last year, what did it mean to you to get that event on after the delays and all the effort that had been put in from the WDF team?
Oh, God. I guess it was a mixture of emotions, really. Joy in proving that it could be done. The reward for lots of effort that we put in to make it happen, and I guess the relief that we came through relatively unscathed. We put in a lot of effort to make the players feel special at Lakeside, and on the whole, I think we achieved that goal. We got a good number of comments during the week and then afterwards from players saying, look, it went really well. We had them at the heart of everything that we were trying to do to keep them updated with what was happening, and we brought someone in particularly to look after the hotel rooms and all of those sorts of things. So we tried to do our best for the players. Look, never say never, because you're always going to find things afterwards where it's, do you know what, we could have done that a little bit better. And definitely things that we can take into the next Lakeside and try to improve. But I think the general consensus was that it was a success. So overall, chuffed, definitely, and probably relieved that we got through it.
Well, looking at one of the other WDF events, we've seen the return of the World Masters towards the end of last year. You were there in Aston at the first time the event had been held outside of the UK, and when the dust had settled, how did you reflect on the return of the Masters as well?
Yeah, I mean, a long time coming round, wasn't it? Obviously, the pandemic put paid to the Masters, and then the delay in getting it up and running. I think there's no doubt, again, from a player's perspective, it was excellent. We got, again, lots of great comments from players that had come from, all over the world. I think it's only right for me to call out the NDB, the Netherlands Darts Bond, who played a massive role in the success. They're their organisation skills. Look, they organise the Dutch Open, don't they? So we sort of knew we were on safe ground, but they are second to none when it comes to organising tournaments of that size, and just did us proud. And I think the other thing that worked in our favour and worked really, really well was Dart Connect. I've had this bugbear about the Masters for years, about the fact that you do the draw, and this is not in any way being detrimental to anybody else, because that was the way we had to do it in the past. But doing the draw days before the tournament, and then you got to the tournament, and there was there'd always be one section of the draw that had buy after buy after buy in it. So one of the things that we really worked with Dart Connect hard on was to say, can we register players on the morning of the tournament? So as actually you do the draw that day when you know actually everybody's in the building. So no unnecessary buys was a massive plus. And then of course we had round robin within the World Masters, which again went down really well. Those far-flung players that were coming, I don't know, they had all of their dreams of coming to the World Masters only to get beat 4-0 in their first game, and that was the end of their weekend. So we wanted to add the round robin in. And again, Dart Connect dealt with that, gave them up-to-date league tables throughout the round robin phase, and then we were able to switch it to the knockout play. And all of that with Dart Connect means that you don't use the microphone. I don't think, somebody will correct me when I'm wrong, I don't think we used the microphone at any point during play in any day of the World Masters, and I think that was a massive success. So great successes. Again, a little bit like Lakeside, though. There are things that you take away and think, we can't do that again. And I think we knew this one actually before we went in. There's no doubt that the late announcement of the tournament cost us entries, but we felt it was important to show that we could get a World Masters on the road. So now we've done it, we've got that learning under our belt, and we can take it forward.
Yeah, it was good to see it come back, and there was a lot of debate as well at the time around the changing format. We've gone from the traditional best of 3 legs per set to a straight legs format. What was behind the changing format, and is it something you might look to revert back to?
Yeah, I think our general feeling was that was the way that players had played throughout the year to get to the World Masters, and albeit the World Championships, you could argue that we play sets in that, so why don't we change that to legs as well? But I think the World Championships it just had that bit more about having sets in it, whereas the World Masters, we felt everybody's played legs all the way through the year, so that was the way they got there, and that's why we went with it. You're right. Look, we got feedback in both ways. A lot of people said they quite enjoyed the legs, and one or two people actually said, because that's what we've been used to being playing over the last sort of year to 18 months as it was. So what will be next year? My gut feel is sticking with legs, but look, it's not only me that makes the decision, so never say never. Another one, look, it's up in the air, and we can review and change if we want to.
Well, last one on the World Masters, and we put a tweet out asking our listeners for some questions with you coming up on the show, and one of them from Patrick says, any news about the World Masters? Is it going to be held this year again?
Oh, yeah. No, listen, that's a really good question. I mentioned earlier that we knew the announcement in 2022 was too late. It was only 6-7 weeks before the tournament took place, so that didn't give our member countries. When we talk about the WDF, we talk a lot about individual players, etc. But of course, our member countries are the backbone of the WDF, and there's over 70. I think we're up to about 76 member countries now. So the fact that they, for the 2022 World Masters, couldn't hold their qualifying tournaments, which also enables them to make a few quid to be able to play for their players to go to World Cups and that sort of thing, that wasn't great. Some of the players, I know there were a few, and it really hit home with me that there were some players that couldn't come because they used all their holiday or they couldn't book the time off work. And of course, those that come from miles away have flights to buy, and they need to do that as early as possible to get the best flight prices, of course. So for 2023, we've given ourselves a deadline at the end of March. So we've got, what is that, about 5-6 weeks to make a final decision on whether there is or isn't going to be a World Masters in 23. And look, it's all about the commercials, and that's just me being really open about it. Quite simply has to stack up in the same way. So, when a member country put on a tournament, the first thing they're going to be looking at is we've got to at least break even and hopefully make a few quid. The WDF's no different. slightly different with the World Masters is the fact that because it's a tournament that players win an invitation to, there's not that £20 or £25 or €25 or $25 entry fee as well. So we need to get the sponsorships and the commercials right to be able to get rid of that outlay as well, if that makes sense. So, look, what I will say, it is absolutely it is the number one thing on our agenda and has been for the last 3 and 4 weeks. There's lots of conversations going about. So, whilst it may sound, oh God, you've only got 5 or 6 weeks. In the back end of the 5 or 6 weeks in 2022, we went from having no late side to having a late side. So never say never, and I'm hopeful, but I wouldn't definitely say it's on, if that makes sense.
Well, you mentioned Lakeside. We've got the 2023 WDF World Championship. That's going to take place a new slot of early December this year. What were the main challenges in finalising a date for this year's event, and how frustrating was it to have that long wait, I guess, from Lakeside last year to then announcing the dates only just before Christmas last year?
Yeah. How long have you got?
About 5 minutes.
Before I answer, I think, look, it's worth mentioning at this point that it's not just Nick Rolls that sits here and makes decisions that affect the future of the WDF and the major events. God forbid, you wouldn't want that. I know, I'd like to think I know about darts, but there are so many other things that go on and make up these sorts of tournaments. So the WDF promotions teams are really the ones that are looking to take the WDF major tournaments and the WDF as a whole, to be fair, forward. And it's important for people to understand that, look, without their expertise in matters outside of darts, such as like ticketing and TV contracts and sponsorship negotiations, etc., we simply wouldn't be able to move forward. And I guess the reason I mentioned that is sort of to come back into the question. At the end of the 2022 Worlds, I said we came through what we thought was relatively unscathed, but we had to evaluate our position. Talking to Lakeside and talking to sponsors to deem whether moving forward was going to be viable. We think it is. Look, it's pretty obvious. We've already sort of announced the 2023 and the 3-year deal. But without going into too many of the details, as a team, what we identified 2 key requirements that we had to get in place before we could go forward. The first of those was we needed to secure a long-term venue agreement. And second, we needed to be in control of our own destiny in so much as being in control of ticket prices and sales, I guess. Now, both of those requirements took some time to land, but as I said, that's why we had the promotions team in place. The good news is they've been landed, and we're now in a much better place because of that. If you then add to that, looking to secure TV coverage, which was particularly challenging. But look, we had interest, but we didn't want to clash with other darting events. That was a fact. There was lots of talk in 22, I know, about us clashing with the seniors in February. And look, I'm not going to deny that date was a possibility, but as I say, we didn't want to clash. Then you've got TV companies find it really difficult to find 2 consecutive weekends available to cover the 9 days. So you say, well, okay, perhaps you could cover the Monday through the Monday through to the Saturday. No, we want to cover the whole tournament, but we can't find 2 weekends together. So that was a challenge. And then the final TV piece is, if you literally, I think was it yesterday or the day before, they announced the Eurosport and BT Sports are to merge. And that's definitely took its toll on us last year because they weren't prepared to, put deals on the table, so to speak, and commit to things. So if you combine the TV challenges with the requirements we needed to sort of land that longer term venue agreement I talked about and the ticketing side of things, that's what delayed the announcement. He said, was it frustrating? Yeah. But given the fact we ran out of options, in the first half of 2023, when the opportunity was sort of voiced about, going to December, and in particular the first weekend in December, it just made sense. I think our position will be, I think I'm right in saying it's between the PDC Players Championships and the World Championships. So we avoid both of those areas. And we should have a long lead in time to sell tickets. And then even more crucially, we keep away from Q School. And we have that space just which can lead to Christmas party goers coming to Lakeside. So, all that time has probably stirred up. Well, not probably, it has. It stirred up a lot of emotions with players and with spectators and fans. But I really do believe that once we get through 2023, the WDF calendar will have a shape to it that it makes sense to players. It's manageable. And then we can really start going forward because we'll have stability in the calendar. And you mentioned the word stability. That will help us make better decisions or further decisions as we go forward. So, was that 5 minutes?
Just under.
I did say it was a long answer.
And obviously the new slot in the calendar for Lakeside in December is different to what it's been before. And one of our listeners, Longistra, has said now that the WDF Worlds is before the PDC Worlds, will players who qualify for both be allowed to participate in both?
That is another really good question. Look, the position with the position with the WDF is that we have quite a simple rule in our stance is that PDC players, the Tour Card 1 to 8, are the only ones that are ineligible to play in WDF ranked tournaments. So as far as the WDF are concerned, players will be able to play in both tournaments. And we think, we've had a discussion about it, and think that's a good starting story. If a player plays at Lakeside and Neil Duff, for example, were to win it and he also qualified for the PDCs, that's a great starting story, in our opinion. The PDC are aware. I met with Matt Porter and made him aware before we announced our plans. We have a relatively good relationship, a very good relationship. In fact, good chat with him. And the ball is now in their court. Hopefully, the players can play in both. But as I say, the WDF stance on this is that they will be allowed to play in both.
Another question we've had comes from Asian Darts. You can probably guess what this one's going to be about. What will the WDF do to expand darts in Asia and encourage players from Asia to play more international tournaments?
Funny enough, actually, I was speaking to the guy that helps or is the contact that we have in Japan, and sort of talking to him about, I know that they've had some real problems with COVID over in Asia, haven't they? And we've been talking to them about getting more tournaments, from Japan, but across Asia onto the calendar. And one of the things that we've done in the last few weeks is the WDF board member, Dietmar Schumann from Austria. He's coming on board, or going to help me in so much of assisting in speaking to member countries across the world with a view to getting their tournaments back on the calendar. Unfortunately, my time is going more towards obviously at this moment in time, the World Masters and those sorts of things. So we haven't had the chance, since I mentioned earlier about, in 2020 we were able to speak to the member countries. So we need to resurrect that as a task, if you like, within the WDF. And Dietmar said he will do it. And that's, for me, we're meeting in Slovakia to talk this through on Saturday. And one of the things I definitely would like Dietmar to do is make contact with a lot of countries and say, come on in, guys, let's have you back on board.
Another one we've had come in is from Ben Hudd, who says, what are your thoughts on prestigious events such as the Isle of Man, Scottish and England Opens not being gold events this year? And are there any plans in place to stop this happening in future years?
Right. Interesting question. Look, I think before I answer, part of the answer would just be for people to understand that the way that a gold, silver or bronze tournament is decided, or the grading thereof, is based on the total prize money that the member country has to offer. So it's literally down to them to say, right, we've got X amount of pounds, dollars, euros, whatever, as our prize money, and that falls into the band of bronze, silver or gold. So it's really important for us when we put this together that was the way we did it, so as that we're giving the member countries the option to control their own finances, so to speak. When it then comes to the number of gold graded tournaments that W has on the calendar, it's a bit of a juggling game. Of course we want them, because I've been in Ireland for the last couple of years when the players that have won there have got their golden ticket to Lakeside, and the expressions on their faces and the delirium has been palpable. It's been brilliant. So yes, of course we want some, but equally you can't flood the calendar with gold tournaments, as that would take away from the importance of the main and regional ranking tables. So it's a bit of a balancing act, really. So if we feel that we're getting too many applications for golds, we'd have to raise the total prize money needed to get a gold graded. But equally, if we're not seeing very many at all, then we need to lower it. So it's not so much about getting them back onto the calendar. As I say, we want to leave that with the member countries to be able to select what is right for their finances. For 2021 and 2022, I think we got the balance pretty much right. For 23, we've currently got, if my memory is right, 6 in total platinum and gold, because obviously the winners of both of those go direct to Lakeside on the calendar. But if you consider that it's 23 and 24 that make up the 2024 Lakeside qualification, theoretically you double the 6 to 12, and again we're going to be in the same position as we are. So I think we're relatively happy with where we are at this moment in time.
Well, we've got another one that's coming from Longister who says, do you think Inside the WDF should come out of podcast retirement?
Yeah, our good friend Andrew, yes, definitely. Funny enough, Andrew's joined the WDF team in recent weeks to help us with raising the profile of our social media, etc. And he's doing a brilliant job. And look, I listen to those podcasts. They're great, aren't they? Give dart fans a great feel for what the players are thinking and what's happening. So, yeah, listen, next time I speak to Andrew, I shall tell him he's got to come out of retirement if that's where he is. So, yes, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, he's definitely my favourite darts podcast to listen to, and a great appointment there. And
I was going to say, he's got he just knows his darts, doesn't he? His knowledge is, I'm not saying that you don't and I don't, but he just seems to know these weird and wonderful facts about darts. And I think he also has a good empathy with the players and understands their plight. So he's able to balance it. And to be fair, that's helped us in the WDF as well. If we want to make a decision and Andy says, I'm not sure all the players are like that, then we'd be stupid not to listen to him.
No, he's a good man. And on to your favourites then. We've got a question from Ewan Marshall who says, what is your favourite darts match that you've ever refereed?
Oh, interesting. I get asked this. I say I get asked it a lot. I don't get asked it a lot, but when I have been asked, I always give 4. So, look, very briefly, my first ever game on TV was the World Masters in 2007. I did a game between Martin Phillips and John Boy Walton, which, of course, as your first game on TV is memorable. But then when John Boy's a 9-darter in the final leg, it's like, okay, there you go. So that's me 9-darter. And I'd never done one, county or anything like that. So that was amazing. My first world final at Lakeside was Anastasia's first Lakeside victory in 2008. That was very special for both of us, but of course more so for Anna. So that was great. Darryl Fitton's always been a really good friend of mine and my wife's, Darryl and Crystal. We've spent many an hour with those guys. And to be honest, he's helped me through a couple of difficult times as referees, which we won't go into. So calling his 9-dart in the Dutch Open final was unbelievable. And the last one I'll mention would be Scott Mitchell winning the Worlds in 2015. I think the best outshot I've ever refereed was his 158 in that final set. It was just chilling, and the crowd just went mental, which was superb. So good questions. All those questions take me back to when I did referee.
Some good picks. And just lastly, before we let you go, over the Christmas period, we saw Richard Ashdown. He stepped down from his role on the WDF Executive, someone who, like yourself, put in a lot of work behind the scenes these last few years. But we want to know, is he going to be involved as a referee at Lakeside? Will we see someone else maybe step in as the MC?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Look, I'm glad you asked that, Alex, and it gives me a chance to talk about Richard, and the fact that you mentioned his hard work is so true. Personally, I think that without Richard stepping forward back in Romania in 2019 to say, look, let's see where we can take grassroots darts, I personally, it is a personal feeling, I feel that the grassroots game as we knew it would have died. That's just me saying what I think. And Richard got it back up and running, and we are where we are now. More recently, he's been quite public about his mental health issues, and as someone that knows him as well as I do, it's been really difficult to see such a good friend suffering the way that he has. The most important thing at this point is for Richard to take all the time he needs, I think, and get himself back to full health, and only then will he even consider the possibility of returning, and I think that's right. Look, actually, Alex, personally, if I can just take this opportunity to send Richard all of my best wishes, I guess there's a lot of people that will be listening to this that would like to do the same. His dedication and knowledge and devotion to darts is unquestionable. I think it's a better place with him with Richard in darting conversations. So, look, let's hope he can come back into the fold in the future. But if that doesn't happen, as long as he's fit and healthy, that's going to be more than good enough for me.
Yeah, definitely echo that. Sending our best wishes to Richard and to you, Nick. Thank you very much for taking the time to have a chat with us, and we wish you all the best for what else is to come this year with the WDF in 2023.
Alex, thanks, mate. I've actually relatively enjoyed it. I was a bit nervous about the whole thing, but I've almost proved to myself that I do know a little bit about it. So, look, thanks for the opportunity, and good luck to you and the Weekly Dartcast team.